Hello, good evening. Methos, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hello, and good evening. How are you doing? Yeah, everyone's front running my introduction nowadays. I'm so predictable. How are you guys doing? I'm doing fine. A little bit tired, but overall fine. In this new paradigm that we're in, it's yeah, the times are crazy. There's infinite stuff to talk about. The whole Trump timeline has calmed down a little, so at least, I mean, we don't need to talk about that too much. We will a little bit, but not too much. We'll look at charts and then see how it goes from there. Bad, all my low caps have gone to zero. I don't know what to do. Yeah, it's brutal, huh? Like the small coins, on-chain stuff, it's just basically rugged. Reason for that is quite simple. And that is that there's infinite of them. It's the biggest reason. I mean, just look into how many coins have launched this cycle. It's like, it's an astronomical amount. Like, it's so much that, like, it's not even compared to prior cycles. It's the first reason why they're not doing so well. And the second one is that Trump coin launched, and everyone that had money on a hot wallet, I mean, they all sold their shit and bought Trump coin. Been a massive liquidity suck, and that's it's kind of hard to justify like small cap coins and meme coins when you can buy the presidential meme coin. You know, I think that's another reason why they're not doing so well. But we'll go over that in the show. Before I forget, big shout out to Woo for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate their support. Their links are in the description. Go check them out. They're good partners to have. Doge to $1 with Elon pump. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think I'm done with Doge, but I'm generally not opposed. I think good chance it gets an ETF. But apparently XRP and Solana are the ones that are getting the ETF. They were somewhat greenlit. I mean, it's still to be decided, but it seems pretty official to have CME futures, which is the precursor to getting an actual ETF, like a proper one. So that's going to be interesting. Probably coming during Trump's term, like in a couple months to maybe a year. What about Litecoin ETF? Same story. Litecoin ETF is pretty likely at this point. Don, can we talk about XMR today, please? I don't think there's much to talk about there, but we can, if I remember, I might look at it, but I don't find it too interesting. But yeah, let's go over Bitcoin first, and then we can talk about other things. Yeah, see how that goes. Anyway, high time frame, monthly, still good. Nothing to worry about. 9 days till close. The only thing that you don't want is red close. I think that would be quite bad because that's kind of like the news trade of Trump went wrong. So you don't want to see that, but anything but that, just decent. The weekly time frame, that's a good chart. We're kind of struggling. Like, you can, if you want to, you can draw a resistance line here, remove this one. Like, this one did its job, right? So we went up, broke down, retested, broke down, and then bounced. I think this one did its job. So you could technically argue that we had weekly resistance, but yeah, it's a little bit close to this area. It's generally a little bit of an odd one. If anything, if I had to redo this chart, which I might do right now, it would look like this. I think that's kind of the situation we're in right now. Like, it's a ginormous range. It's not that ginormous, but it's a big range. we lose 90k, it starts looking really bad, like I said, because the Trump trade is basically going negative at that point. Like that's something you really don't want to see. It breaks out above 104, I think you can get some acceleration going. But until either of those things happen, not too interesting. You can argue that this is the midpoint. We got rejected here, pumped above it. Maybe we find support if we nuke at 98k. Don, do you think there's much chance we range here like we did last year? Yeah, possible that we just range again. Kind of like this, just here. But the problem with TA, right, and then I'll quickly kind of talk about this, is that the whole Trump admin is where, like, I mean, it's crazy, basically. Like, there's unpredictable shit happening, right? Trump has a bad mood, says something bad about crypto, shit nukes, right? Trump says something good about crypto, shit will go up, right? So basically, you have TA, yes, and it does kind of help you out a little, especially on the high time frames. But what you now have to do when you're like actively trading is basically have Twitter open at all times. Make sure you don't miss any kind of like tweets of his, any comments of his about crypto. You're gonna see it all over your timeline the moment it happens anyway. And then adjust accordingly, which is really, really annoying. Like that's the worst kind of trading. Like I hate that kind of trading. I love it when I get to buy 16k. No one gives a fuck about crypto. There's no real reason for it to go up besides that it just went down way too much, and then I just hold. Like that's the fun part. When you're this like in this part of the cycle where it's just basically like you're reliant on the president of the United States making good comments for it to go up, or not making bad comments. It's annoying. Like it's really, really annoying. But that's just how it is. Makes sense given it's the bigger asset now, but it's not big enough. Like crypto is not big enough to be talked about like this, basically. Which means that one Trump comment can nuke the market by 20% and can push it up by 10. It's just not necessarily good trading conditions, depending on whether you like that kind of trading or not. Like if you're like someone that loves to stare at Twitter 24/7, that this might actually like do you a favor because you are quicker than everyone else. But otherwise, feels like a cycle top. Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, basically, and we'll talk about this once we get to the meme coins, like Trump coin and everything. I get where you're coming from, so we'll talk about it once I'm done with Bitcoin. I went and talked about something else again, which I like to do, just like Trump. Trump jumps from one thing to the next. Same here. Jesus Christ, that chart needs some help. This should not be here. That's fine, and this should not be here. Better now. On daily time frame, this is kind of where we're at. It's actually been pretty clean with support resistance levels. As you can see, like perfect touch here, perfect touch there. And it is marching up for now. I think generally on the daily, you don't want to see the support level be broken. Otherwise, it starts looking quite shit quite fast. Like then you get a proper washout, I think. Like below 98k-ish, you start getting in trouble, TA-wise at least. And above 106k on the daily, it's the breakout. There's really not much more to say. And I think like at this point, legit, like whether we break down or break up is rests on the shoulders of Trump. Don, how's your new baby? I mean, still in mommy, doing decent. What's up, Don? Did you talk about Solana and ETH already? I will. But yeah, that's the story with Bitcoin. Not much to say. If there's a time frame that's interesting, I think it's the weekly. This one doesn't belong here. It's the weekly, this the range. Basically, you want to see us break out. If this breaks down, same story. I think we would pull back towards like low 80s. Excuse me. I think we would break, like if we break down, right? If it cannot manage to break out, I think we would kind of like stop somewhere here and then probably go up. Back in the range. That's kind of my go-to right now. Like if we would break down, if we break out, it's just another acceleration. Because if you look at this, right, on the weekly time frame, we had consolidation here and it went up. We had consolidation here and went up. And this is more compressed than the prior consolidation. And if it breaks out, it would kind of start going parabolic. And I think that would be the last leg of the Bitcoin move for the foreseeable future. But it would be a good leg. I think if we broke out, maybe, like I said, with a little bit of help of like from Trump, I could see this go to like 150 quite quickly, which would be good. And then maybe we see a little bit of an altcoin rotation. If that doesn't happen, if we break down, like I said, 80K, and then we maybe have a little bit more of a sustainable push up afterwards, because what I'm a little bit worried about looking at this structure is that this is like, it's some sort of parabola, right? And if you break that but don't break down, I think it'd be quite good for just building a little bit of structure, making the market a little bit more, like stabilizing the market a little bit more. But we'll see how it goes. Gesundheit, bro. Thanks. Danke. So sad that crypto has come to this, resting on the shoulders of Trump. The bear market will be catastrophic. Yes, I think the bear market is actually going to be quite bad. If you kind of think back at the beginning of this bull market, I was kind of like, I don't think the next bear market is going to be as bad as the last one has been. I actually don't necessarily think that anymore. I think the next bear market is going to be brutal as fuck. And the reason for that, one of many, I mean, anyone that's seen what I've written on Twitter, I've called this season the crime season, because I think basically we've had, and this is how like literally everything in life goes, and I rarely see this talked about, right? But basically, like everything in life is a pendulum, right? So you have your pendulum, and then like in politics, for example, it's left, right, where you basically you go from one side to the other, and you overshoot. Like you go too far left, and then you get weird fucking shit that happens, and people are like, wait, this doesn't really like I don't recognize this as something that's important to me or should be important. And then they're like, fuck this, like this is so stupid at this point. And then the pendulum kind of swings back and goes too far, like no, not too far depending on your standpoint, but it goes further to the right, and then you have the same thing happening again. Some people are like, holy shit, like this is way too much, like guys, calm down. And then it kind of like it goes back and forth, right? And the same thing is true with crypto, where it's like it's not left, right, it's crypto regulation, right, where we had basically a complete and utter shutdown of crypto and anything, like you couldn't really do anything in crypto, and it was kind of like completely stifled in a way by the prior admin, and I mean it's just fucking stupid basically. Like if the only thing that you can do is launch meme coins, like the only thing that you don't go to jail for is meme coins. If you try to reward people for like taking part, whatever, you go to jail. I mean, it's fucking stupid, right? Because then you kind of build this whole scam thing. Everyone's just fucking taking advantage of each other, right? And basically we had that, and it was a bunch of like meme coins, whatever. And I think we are very, very quickly swinging the other way now, where it's basically like crimes allowed. That's why I'm calling it crime season. And you're gonna see, like, if this cycle continues, and I mean that is an if, it's not guaranteed, but if the cycle continues, I think we're gonna see crimes on a completely different level. And I mean, you can argue what is better, right? Like stifling crypto completely, making it useless, or just basically letting crypto run, see how it goes, and then what happens is a lot of crime, right? Because I kind of feel like that's where we're in. We will swing on this pendulum like way too far in the other direction, and then we're gonna get massive crime, and it's gonna be really bad. And I think that will lead to a big fallout that swings this fucking thing all the way back again to like very, very strong restrictions. I just hope that it doesn't go stupidly far again like it was in the prior administration. So that's kind of like my feeling on this whole matter. Basically, we're headed, like if this cycle continues, we're headed into like unprecedented crime. But also during that time, you're going to see a bunch of protocols and whatever actually try cool shit, which is good. Stuff that they didn't dare to try before because they were afraid to like go to jail, get sued, get like the SEC jumped on them basically. So you're gonna get good, but also very much bad. And we all know what happens when the criminals are let loose in crypto. It goes fucking insane, and then you get massive crime levels. We always have crime, but I think it's gonna basically explode. And the best example, and I mean, it's not technically criminal, right? But to anyone in crypto, this is fucking criminal, I think. And I think the left and the right can agree on this, that this is just not right. Like, I think anyone that looks at this objectively, the fact that like the US has a president now that's taking advantage of his position by launching a meme coin, making billions of dollars off of it, it's just not right, especially when then there's a second meme coin that launches like just like a day after. Like that just doesn't really seem right. And I think that's anyone can agree on that. And I've talked with a lot of people on both sides, just because I was curious kind of what the opinions are. And a lot of hardcore diehard like Republicans agree with me that this is just not it. And that they would have rather not seen this. But I think this basically the Trump meme coin, and I think I don't need to explain like the whole history behind it because I think everyone knows. But I mean, we'll talk on Casual Friday about it for sure with Cred. Yeah, and pretty much everyone agreed this is not the way to go. You don't want to have someone take advantage of the position like this. Like the presidency, but that's just where we are now, and I think it's the perfect kind of start to something like that. Basically, the laws haven't really changed too much yet, but I think everyone is gonna see this as kind of like okay, you can do whatever the fuck you want now. The president has a meme coin, might as well launch your own meme coin, might as well launch grifts, scams, whatever the fuck, right? Because if the president can do this, and to me this, like I've shit talked any influencer in my vicinity for the last 7 years if they did something like this, right? Especially given Trump owns 80% of this coin, right? So like if you buy, like if you just generally like 80% of the proceeds basically go to Trump, right? Which is insane. This is not something that you usually have. It was even worse with the Melania coin. So like that's like this fucking wild. Like that's morally, I think, very, very just poor taste. Doesn't really matter what you think about Trump and whether you think he's gonna make the world a better place or not. This one should have stayed in the drafts, shouldn't have launched, but it did. And now I think basically it's gonna embolden a lot of people to do a lot of stuff. And it's not only gonna be bad things, like don't get me wrong, like there's gonna be people trying cool shit with crypto, and I hope that those are the ones that get the attention, and like these kind of things, like the Trump coin gets less. But yeah, let me see what you guys are saying about this, because I mean, I'm curious, but yeah. I was down until Melania coin. That was weird. Yeah. I mean, I think just generally, even this one, like even with just one, it's just not right. But with two, and then Baron, like apparently very likely launched one too, that at the end drugged. But anyway, like, so you have basically 3 Trump coins. Like you go on CoinMarketCap, and then you have the categories, right? And at some point you have to click on Trump, and then there's gonna be like a list of 20 fucking meme coins of everyone in his family. Like, just no. This is something that I should talk people, like I said, in my vicinity for years for, like taking advantage of their followers. This is nothing different. Like meme coins, and the reason why I'm saying this is meme coins are a zero-sum game, right? Like if you launch it 100% fair and there's no fees involved, there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, but at the end of it all, like everyone's going to go around with an average, like going out of it with an average of 0, right? But then you add fees, which makes it a negative sum game, but a very slightly negative. Fees are not that high. But then you add how much Trump owns of this, which is 80%, and then it's a ginormously negative sum game. Like insanely negative sum game. If you take part in it and you make money with it, I would have. If I was awake, I would have bought it. I wasn't. Sucks to be European. Sucks to be Euro poor. But yeah, if you're early, you made money with it, great. But just generally, like in 10, 15, 20 years, does this thing still exist? Nah. Like, just no. And at that point, there's a very, very high likelihood that the coins held by Trump are going to be gone. Not going to be held by Trump anymore. They're going to be held by backholders. And it's brutal. Like, there's no value created here. It's a meme coin. And I think that's a pretty bad representation of the space. But yeah. I think just generally, like higher vibrations, it's such bad taste, and like it's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, basically, and this is what I alluded to earlier. The reason why your shitcoins are dumping is because this has, like, I mean, the full diluted market cap, like full diluted valuation of this surpassed Dogecoin at some point. So, like, you just basically went from nothing to Dogecoin. That money has to come from somewhere, and it came from people dumping all of their shit to buying this. And yeah, there we are. It's just how it goes. So basically, Trump sucked that liquidity out of the market, and it's very likely not, like, that liquidity is probably not coming back. I think Trump is gonna stay somewhat relevant. Like, this coin is gonna stay somewhat relevant. I don't think it's necessarily a good trade at this valuation. The only reason why I'm saying this is because he launched Melania. People are not gonna want to hold something where they're fucking afraid that they're gonna get diluted, right? And this is something that he did with his NFTs. He launched one. It was wildly successful, and he basically launched version 2 of it, which was quite a bit less successful. And people were like, whatever. I mean, the version 1 is gonna be the one that's valuable. So still bought it. And then he launched version 3 of it. And then you had 3 NFTs. And at that point, like, everything fucking created. And if he didn't become president, like, they'd be trading at 0 now, right? So, and I think it's actually more than 3 now. I haven't kept up with it. I saw the second one launch, and I was like, shit. And I think that's just basically, like, he's surrounded by, like, the people that advise him on this, or, like, just generally, like, the people that work with him. Even if they tell him that this is stupid, maybe he's not listening. But more likely than not, the people that advise him on his crypto strategy are just fucking idiots. Would have made so much more money on both the NFTs and on his coin if he just kept it at one NFT, one coin. The NFT would be one of the biggest NFTs, I think, right now, which you make fees on. He had, like, a stupid amount of fees. I think he charged 10% of fees for trading the NFT. So every single trade, 10% went to Trump. And with the coin here, could have made much more money. But basically, people are afraid that he's gonna do the same thing that he did with the NFTs, and I think it's very likely that that is the case. Not necessarily him per se, because technically he's not allowed to, but he doesn't really give a fuck. But he could just have family members launch stuff, and even if they do illegal stuff, which possible, he can just pardon them, just like Biden did. So we're kind of like in a situation where crime, especially if you have the president on your side, is completely illegal, right? You can do whatever the fuck you want. If the president's on your side, you're gonna be off the hook. And therefore, people, I think, don't want to buy this right now. Or just basically, if the moment it goes up, people start getting afraid that they're gonna get dumped on again. I wouldn't want to short it, but I definitely, like a long-term investment, whatever, I just don't see it. And I mean, if you watch the launch of this coin, right, and I'm sorry to kind of talk about this for so long, just looking at the blank chart, but if you watch the launch, there was so many insiders on this thing making millions of dollars. Usually, if you snipe something like this, you don't hold it until like infinity. There's infinite wallets that did this, like turning like 100K into multi-millions, a million into like 300 millions. Like you can go over the on-chain data. Like there was a lot of people that knew about this way earlier than they should have. So yeah, there was a lot of people made a lot of money. Even if you're arguing that Trump didn't dump, his friends for sure got out of this with a lot of money. Did you kidnap Cred or something? Guy's missing. Tell us, where did you lock him up, man? Have a change of heart? No, man. The old man must die. So that's kind of the situation with the Trump coin. Like I said, I'm like almost guaranteed gonna talk about it for a long time with Cred on Friday. But that's kind of my opinion on the matter. It's a trade. You can trade it. If it nukes significantly, I think it's going to be one of the stronger ones on the rebound. But just generally, I think you want to short-term trade this, not longer-term hold it. Don, you must realize you're also an old man retiring from crypto. I'm not that old yet. I actually have a lot of gray hair, so I might be a little bit old. But I've had that since I've been like 20. It's 5 NFT collections now. Latest one on Bitcoin ordinals, Omega Clown move. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But yeah. So this is the reason why your altcoins suck. And this is going to continue to be the reason why your altcoin sucks. Because if the market does well, like if you see Bitcoin here on the right going up, there's a good chance Trump goes up with it. And then especially if Bitcoin goes up because of something that Trump said, and then it's gonna suck more liquidity out of your altcoins. If the market goes down, Trump goes down with it, and then that's gonna nuke your altcoins anyway. So you're gonna have to have something that has like a good reason to go up, basically. Otherwise, you're gonna get shit on by this coin. Is what it is at the end of the day. Just gotta cope with it. There's a few good looking altcoins. There's a lot of bad looking ones. We can go over a few of them. So bad looking ones, start off with ETH. High time frame looks still decent. This weekly candle, not the best. I would have hoped for this bounce from weekly support to kind of like be a little bit stronger, like not just like retrace half of it immediately, especially with Bitcoin being pretty much at all-time high. Like that's not great. So you can just look at this chart and be like, okay, I can see the weakness on ETH BTC, right? But just generally, like this is still good. As long as it's holding 2.9K, I think that's invalidation. Anything below there, and then maybe we get a bigger crypto washout than we'd think. break out above 4K, I think it's really good. I think just generally you go above this swing high, this is gonna break out, right? So basically, if you're not holding any, which I mean, it's a pretty good financial decision looking at this chart. If you don't hold any, don't underestimate it if it breaks 3.6K. I think at that point you really don't want to fade it. But until then, I mean, might as well just ignore it because price action's been shit. And then, like I said, below 2.9, I think gets into trouble, and then maybe we get like a 2K buy or something instead of trying to like catch the knife early. I think if this goes here, breaks down, I think there's a really good chance that it just goes to the next support. And the next support is, like I said, 1.92K. So that's something to watch out for on the downside. Like I said, breakout level 3.6. If it breaks to the upside, that'd be obviously much nicer. But yeah, just generally, that's kind of where this is headed. It still looks to me like the USD pair is a good chart, right? So this is the range, broke below the range, came back up. Like that's kind of like an inverse head and shoulders setup. Cannot really hate on this too much. But yeah, if Bitcoin goes down, it ruins the setup. Be unfortunate. Free cred, everyone is in chat. No, he stays in the cellar. I'm sorry, guys. Sol looking good? Yeah, Sol is one of the ones that's looking good. We'll talk about that in a second. Duck, I can't imagine Whiff or Popcat hitting all-time high again. They topped it, in my opinion. What do you think? Whiff and Popcat are interesting. I mean, Popcat's bouncing really strongly right now. Whiff's still fucking weak. I think Whiff... I think both of them have a chance, but it's a very, very slim one. It basically needs to go viral again. And like, I think it's like both of those are kind of like old memes now. So I'm not necessarily thinking they go again. But there's always a chance, right? Like stuff that has gone viral before can go viral again. Both of those went viral. But if it was viral before, like you're not getting the advice animals, right? Think back. The advice animals that we had all over the internet a couple of years back, like it's not like they're having a resurgence, right? They had a little bit, like they were very popular, then died off a little bit, and then it came back. But just generally, like memes don't usually come back for another round. But they can, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't want to say like, hey, they're not going back to all-time high, because they very easily could. But this is an awful chart, and just generally it's a meme coin, so the end result will be zero. So if you have a bad chart, bad relative strength, you don't want to hold it, right? Popcat, like I said, has a really nice bounce right now, still wildly bearish. You can argue that like it's reclaimed the breakdown here, and then you can watch it and see how it goes, and if it kind of like starts like pushing even higher, maybe that's a decent one. But like it's a meme coin to me. It's not really that interesting. Like I said, like if meme coins go crazy, I think it's like you probably like I generally think the Trump meme coin kind of like fucked over memes massively, because like I said, like if you want to allocate to memes, right? If you want to buy memes, back in the day you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna buy the biggest one, like maybe Doge, and then I buy like a bunch of like smaller ones. Now you have to buy Dogecoin, because I mean that's just obvious. Then you have to buy Trump coin, because I mean you kind of have to, like if you're like in the meme sector, like that's one of the memes that you kind of just have to own if you want to have like a meme portfolio. And then like, do you have Melania too? Probably not. Like I think that's a really shit one to hold, just generally. I think that's the laggard trade, the weak coin that you don't want to hold. But just generally, like you see how this dilutes it and kind of makes the reasoning for holding them so much weaker. Because I mean, try explaining to your friend that they should be buying Popcat instead of the fucking Presidency meme coin. Like it's really, really hard. That's why, like, if Trump didn't launch Melania, I think Trump would have done really, really well. But he did, and people are afraid that he's gonna do it again, and that's gonna stifle this thing big time. but still, it's still the president's coin, right? And if he tries to pump it in any shape or form, you're gonna get a liquidity drain out of the other memes again. So I think this was the worst thing that could have happened to memes. But could be wrong. There's a few memes that are doing well. But just generally, like, I think memes you want to be buying on the upswing, not necessarily when they're nuking and going to zero. Like if they range, maybe, but like during something like this, like here you have a range, right? Like and we talked about this on stream actually, where I was like, I actually don't mind this that much anymore. Like that's a good, like this is so much better of a chart, and I'm not bearish anymore. And I would actually like say this is probably gonna go up. If you go back to like the stream that we did during this time frame, I don't know which day exactly it was, but I was like, this is probably gonna break out. It did, and it went higher. And like if we do something like that again, maybe, but until that happens, I just don't see the point really. Do you think the cycle top is in? If not, when? I think the cycle top's probably not in yet. I think there's more to milk, and I think Trump is gonna milk this more. But I think it's pretty soon. Yeah. Thoughts on Pengudon? I know you said you liked it on X Live. Yeah, I'm not a hater. It's a fresh meme, and it's like it's a beloved crypto NFT, and that's really hard. Like really hard to have. Like everyone fucking hates all the NFTs, and the Pengus are not hated, so doesn't seem like the worst meme coin out of them. Like I think there's much worse. Like Popcat and Whiff I think are much worse than Pengu. But like I said, I mean Popcat's up 20%, so it's great. But yeah, let me get back to if I got interrupted and talk about dog shit instead of ETH, which to be fair, I mean it's not really having much better price action than that. But yeah, I look at this triangle, see how it resolves. 2.9 and 3.6, I think, are the areas of interest. ETH BTC, obviously horrendous. There is not that much days left in this month, and we're kind of breaking down right now. And then there is a lower support, but it's, I mean, at some point, like, I mean, this is literally going parabolic now, which is good news. I love to buy those when they put a candle in like this, right? So, like maybe we get that and then it's a buy again. I don't know. I generally like ETH, so I'm just gonna assume that that's not gonna happen, but could happen. Like when you have parabolas to the upside, what usually happens is it does this and then it goes like this and then it breaks the parabola, right? That's how it like almost always goes when these go parabolic. And on ETH we're going parabolic to the downside. So how this goes is basically you bounce in this and then you fucking nuke and then you break the parabola and break out and start the new trend. So maybe that's the end of like how like the end of this downtrend. Just needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe if Bitcoin pushes, like if Bitcoin pushes to 150K and ETH just doesn't do anything, I think that would be enough for people to fully capitulate. And then ETH USD could stay at the same price level and still get a massive capitulation. It's something we've had in 2017 where Bitcoin pushed hardcore and then ETH didn't do anything. People capitulated and then it bounced and regained all of the lost ground in like a couple of days. Which I think is honestly not too unlikely. I could see it play out the same way again. Like the hate on ETH is perfect right now. This is exactly what I would want to see. Like, and I mean, if XRP moons, right, and I hope it does, and goes quite aggressive, I at some point I might rotate all of that into ETH if the hate gets more aggressive as like an end cycle play, because I think ETH is probably gonna outperform almost everything else at the end of the cycle, which is not great, right? Basically, you finally have your moment in the sun and then everything fucking dies. But I kind of could see that happen for ETH. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. I could be wrong. This could just turn around in the next 9 days. And cool thing would be that if it closes back above 0.035, that would also kind of invalidate the parabola that is kind of setting up. And then I think that would probably be the bottom. But otherwise, like if this continues to go down, I would expect a big down candle. Like I said, perfect would be if Bitcoin goes up a bunch, and then a reversal and then up. But we will see how that goes. I'm just looking at the ETH/USD chart. Don't really care too much about ETH BTC, but that's kind of like seems pretty clearly parabolic to the downside to me, which is something that I usually buy, something that I've bought on Bitcoin infinite times. When sentiment gets this bad, I usually like it. If it closes below, will you swap into Bitcoin until 150k? No, I'm more than happy to just hold shit. Don't really give a fuck. Like, look, for me, like if it does this and then comes back up like a week or 2 or 3 later, makes no difference, right? Like if it goes here and then goes up, or if it does this and then goes up, to me, this doesn't really make a difference. If I was on leverage, I would care, right? But without leverage, like who cares? Don't really. I think the hate is way overblown. Like it's too much right now, but it kind of sets up for a nice capitulation. So people can hate. Please, can you tell us why sometimes you take candle bodies and sometimes wicks and tails as support resistance? It depends. I generally prefer bodies. So for example, we can look at this range, right? When we set that high, I had this as resistance, and that worked quite well, and we broke out, went back below, and I was like, okay, now like this is still the resistance, right? And it worked perfectly again. We ran against it, went high, but that's like a 2 times fake out, happens very rarely. And I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna update this because we kind of broke this line twice. This isn't really that accurate anymore. I'll just take the wick. But it's all like there's no real like 100% system behind it. It's just how it feels right. It's all kind of like dependent on how you look at the chart and what makes sense to you. And I know that's not really a good answer. I generally think trading is a lot of just kind of like, it's about how you interpret the data that you have and how you look at the market. And I think people that box themselves in too much with rules and whatever. And I don't think it's a bad thing when you start out, right? Like you want to basically start out like you try a rule, basically you add a rule to your tool set and you just follow it, and then you decide, okay, this rule is shit or this rule is good, right? Like for example, like I always use the bodies, it's my rule, and then you're like, I will always use this, and then you do it for a bunch, like a little bit, and you're like, is this like, has this done well for me or not? And then if you like it hasn't, then you adjust it and you're like, okay, maybe in this situation I do it like this, in that situation I do it like that, and then you have 2 rules out of that 1 rule. And then you kind of like look at it for a while, see how it performs, see if it does well or not. And then you adjust it again, and it gets more and more complex. And at some point down your journey, you're just going to look at this and you're going to be like, okay, this support resistance line has to be here. For me, to look at this and have the chart make sense. And that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm just like, I look at this thing and I just draw stuff the way it makes sense to me, and then kind of look at it and see how I can use that data, right? For example, you could also like you could have drawn this as the support, right? So up here, but then my argument would be like, you could be like, hey, this should have been the support, we touched it, why did we not bounce here? And my argument is basically, there's a much better support level here, like a much more interesting area, because this was a long time that we traded in here. So like that whole area was kind of like a big consolidation. So given it's so close to where we are here, we're kind of drawn to this consolidation, and that's more important than using the high here. And therefore, I will use the high on that consolidation. And that worked quite well for 1 month. Obviously, we nuked afterwards, and we actually, funnily enough, rejected from that high, right? But that's kind of how I look at it, and then just kind of like go with the flow, see what works for you, what doesn't. I'm not saying that my lines are the perfect lines. Oftentimes, I have an idea what the market should do, given where it's at, and given kind of like the narratives that I play, and then kind of look for like all of these lines, right? What they do is they basically give you invalidation so you can trade around them, right? So for example, like I have this line down here, and I was like, this is the range. I'm thinking it's gonna break down. And if you look back on the streams that Cred and I did when we were trading up here, I was quite bearish on ETH, and I was like, this just kind of looks like shit. And then we broke down, and it was like, I want to see if this can reclaim the bottom of the range, right? And basically, this was my invalidation for my bearishness at that point. It's like, that's all it is. Like, it's just a nice, like, if I was shorting, I don't really short anymore, but what this is basically would be like, that's my soft stop loss. So like if we go back above, like back into the range, I would basically stop myself out. So all the lines that you draw basically just help you getting into trades and getting out of trades. Because if you don't have any and you just look at the chart and you're like, oh, I'm gonna buy here, where are you wrong? Like, what's your thesis? And then that becomes quite bad quite quickly, because you can then add lines that kind of support your thesis in any shape or form, or just leave the lines and cope yourself out like, hey, it's even cheaper now, I'm going to buy more, and I'm going to buy more, and I'm going to buy more, and then it keeps going lower and you're fucked, right? That's what it's for. It's not necessarily there to predict exactly where the market is going to go. It's there to tell you exactly where you're wrong. And it can be wrong, obviously. Like, you can be like, I think this goes up, and then you set your invalidation, and you can still be right, even if your invalidation is set, but it helps you basically avoid zeroing out your account entirely. I hope that makes sense. A lot of rambling, but yeah, it's just how it is. Like, all of this is very subjective, is all I'm saying. And anyone that tells you there's a perfect recipe is a fraud. Like, just straight up a fraud. So, show receipts, Don. How much do you receipts? I don't know how to pronounce it. How much did you make this cycle? I mean, that's one of the most stupid things to do, I think. I don't know why people flex so much. I made $2.50. Don't kill me, please. But yeah. Anyway, that's ETH. Going to more interesting charts, sadly. I mean, it's just how it is. XRP, still hilarious on the high time frames. I mean, talked about this when it's trading down here, how strong it looked. Now it's another 50% higher. Like, it's actually insane how much this bounced, right? Like, this is 60% from the low, outperforming almost every single thing in the market. Most certainly outperformed everything on the bigger spectrum, right? I think it even outperformed Solana on that bounce, even though Solana had a shitload of good news. Let me check. Yeah. I mean, it's still up even against Solana, even though Solana's had like some of the best things happen to it that could have happened, which is basically Trump launching on Solana. The big fuck you to ETH. And I think that kind of leads to a lot of people kind of like rotating into Solana from ETH. And yeah, XRP still outdid it, which is really funny because XRP, like, I mean, doesn't really offer anything. Like, cannot really do much on XRP. Doge ETF? Yeah. Like, that's what we talked about earlier. Like, like Doge ETF, like if you're getting an XRP ETF, whatever ETF, Doge ETF is next. But yeah, people are already fading it. Wasn't really that like good price action on XRP, decent on Solana. Like Solana held up the best. Like both XRP and Solana are getting a futures ETF. I'm guessing the same thing is true for Doge. If it was an actual ETF, it would trade much higher. But yeah, look, it's already being faded. Market's kind of weak right now. People are very uncertain. Like this was also like Doge. Elon Musk put the Doge picture on a government website, and it was this pump almost fully retraced. Limited Doge price response. Market looks exhausted. Yeah, the altcoin market looks very, very tired. Like there's not enough liquidity to go around. So basically, you need a little bit of an injection by Bitcoin going up, or by new people showing up. But yeah, this is not necessarily the price action you want to see. Then again, like futures ETFs don't really matter too much. It's not a big news thing. But yeah, back to XRP. Weekly looks still insane. I generally, like now you can start drawing lines. We were not able to before because it was just straight up. You have kind of a range here. A good comparison is the Dogecoin, I think. The Dogecoin lower time frames, where you had, there was something very similar. Let me see if I can find it again. Was it on the daily time frame? Don't remember. Was it Dogecoin? Am I on crack? Yeah, 4 hour, where we had like, so we had this range here, and then we broke to the upside, and something that you don't want to be seeing on the XRP breakout, right, is basically something similar, where you have the push, you have to retrace, you go high, so push, retrace, you go high, right, and then you retrace all of it. So basically do something like that. It's an indication of weakness. It did rally further, but then just completely rug pulled, died, right? There's something that you don't want to see on the XRP weekly chart, where it like basically it broke out here, so up like this, right? That's exactly what we're having here. And what you don't want to see is basically the weakness creep into weekly chart to kind of fall back here. I think then you might actually get the same fractal where it comes back up and then actually just dies afterwards. So that's something to kind of look out for. But right now it's a breakout, and it's quite a strong one at that. So not complaining, quite happy with this, but we'll see how it goes. This is the one warning thing, like the one warning sign that I would not necessarily ignore. Like if it nukes again and then comes back up, it's probably a bounce that you want to sell, but who knows? I would prefer if it just explode upwards. But for that, we would need to have Bitcoin strength. Like this is begging to go up, but Bitcoin's not really playing ball. The altcoins are most definitely not playing ball, right? And then when you have the entire altcoin sector bleeding, it's really hard for any of them to go up, right? You need to have like a little bit of a stabilization. But yeah, weekly looks good. The daily time frame is quite interesting. We had a range that got undercut a couple times. Retested here, went up, and now we're kind of doing the same thing again, where we have a range, and you want to see that break to the top. But obviously never guaranteed that it does. You can actually make that more accurate. So in this case, someone asked, like, because you guys asked me for like how you draw stuff, you can like, so look, this was a nice support for this bounce. But now that we've gone through this bounce, I actually think like you don't want to have this range low because there's so much empty space in here, right? So I actually think the range low is more accurate down here. You can see how that's been nicer, and this was just the washout. And then you don't have as much empty space, and it's more defined, the whole thing. Because you could be like, hey, this was the bottom, so this has to be the range low, and now we go back to that, and then that's the range. And I would argue it's more likely to be more accurate up here, and this was just a washout. And if it goes down, this is what you want to hold. If you start going back down here and retest that washout candle, it starts looking worse, not better, and then you don't necessarily want to buy it again. But obviously, like, it depends, right? It depends on how it gets there. Depends on everything. But it's just kind of how I chose my lines. I think Trump will mention Bitcoin this week. I think he will be pushed by his advisors to do so, yeah, at some point. But we'll see. It's the crime cycle. I think it's gonna play out. Like, we're gonna get crime. I'd be shocked if we didn't. Perfect setup. What even, like, is the support level, man? Yeah, good question. Reason why this shit works, because it's all bullshit at the end of the day, right? But the reason why this works is we're trading a fraudulent market that doesn't really have any intrinsic value, right? So if you have a market that doesn't have any intrinsic value, what the fuck do you actually value this by? And how do you decide when to buy and when to sell, right? And people really don't like when they just make YOLO decisions, at least like the little bit smarter ones. They need a good reason to get in and out, right? And given they can look at all the data in the world and they don't find anything because, like I said, the intrinsic value is just not there yet, they have to use something else. So you have a bunch of people, and this is why I say, like, this line drawing and all that shit, like, if you're starting to use that on the S&P, do it on the high time frames, but like the low time frame stuff, it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't really seem like there's much alpha there. But basically, because there's other reasons why stuff goes up and down in the traditional market. In this case, a bunch of people look at the same thing. They cannot really look at anything else other than the chart. And then you just want to find out where people are likely to take bets and where they're not. And like areas where you don't want to take bets because you're going to be the churn, right? So basically the reason why support resistances work so well in crypto is because that's the only thing that people can actually decide on, like how to buy, when to buy, all that kind of shit. Because if you have like enough people that are like, hey, I like XRP, I don't necessarily want to buy it here at 3.16. I want to buy it at $3, and then they put their orders there. Well, there you have it. Probably gonna bounce there. So, not sure about the crime thesis. Yeah, I mean, could just not play out. At the end of the day, I think if we get the crime cycle, it's really bearish for crypto long term, but really bullish short term. If we don't get the crime cycle, it's very bearish short term, but bullish long term. So, like, yeah, I'm gonna be more bullish long term if you don't get the crime cycle. But I'm gonna make much less money short term. Hey Don, would you try to go for a 5x in this cycle or cash out and wait for the next cycle? What I've done this cycle is just I've continuously cashed out a bunch. So I make a bunch of money, I like take like 5-10% out of it. I make more money, I take another 5 or 10% out of it. So at this point, I'm like, even if everything goes to zero, like if Trump like tomorrow went on stage and was like, crypto's outlawed, fuck the crypto people, they all deserve to die, and Bitcoin went to like 30K, like Trump was like, all the ETFs have to sell their Bitcoin, whatever. Like, even if that happened tomorrow and all went to fucking zero, I'd be happy with how the cycle went. That's kind of how I make sure that I'm not in a stupid position, because this could be cycle top things, right? Like fucking Trump launching a meme coin. There's no one else that is in a higher, like the president of the United States launched a meme coin. Like, who else in a higher position is gonna launch a meme coin? No one. Like, we've topped it. The president of the United States did it. Like, you could argue that that's the top, right? Like, there's no one above him. There's like zero, like you cannot top this. So you can make an argument that it's the top, and I mean, it's not a bad one. I think he's probably going to pump it because his reputation kind of like hinges on it a little bit, but he could also just not give a fuck. And we've been pricing it in, like, his presidency for quite a while, right? So you can make an argument for the cycle top, and therefore, I'm not comfortable just having like all of my money in crypto being like, this is how, like, I mean, Bitcoin ran from 16K to 100. XRP ran from 60 cents, 50 cents to like $3. Like, we've had big runs. And for me, that's like, I'm just continuously cashing out the cycle. And then once I think the cycle top is in, I'm going to cash out like most of it. But if I mistime it and everything nukes, I'm still going to be fine. So why would he be buying strategic reserve at the top? I still don't think he buys the... I think that's pretty much like going to be the next pullback. Don't think the strategic reserve is necessarily coming. It'd be a welcome surprise. I don't think it's a good thing for America, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be more than happy to have the American citizens buying crypto, pumping my bags, so I can dump on them. Like, I'm down. I'm not American, so I'm down with it. But I think it's such a bad choice that I don't think they're gonna do it. But then again, like, if you asked me if Trump is gonna launch a meme coin, I probably would have said no, and I would have been wrong, right? So like, whether something is a good choice or not doesn't really seem to matter too much. But I think it's such a terrible choice. I don't think it's happening. What I think could happen is that Trump kind of suggests it, like, kind of is like, hey, I wanted strategic reserve, and then it gets nuked in Congress. So like, if Trump says it and crypto rallies, I think I would want to at least hedge my bets on that pump. What about Taylor? He's still going hard. Yeah, he's going hard and it's not really moving. It's not great. So Doge ETF announcement and no pump bearish. I mean, we talked about this. This is not like, it's not the biggest deal, the ETF, but yeah, two, we talked about this when it was trading high. I was like, this is probably gonna fade, and it did. It did the same thing with XRP, and like, look, this was the pump. It's all the way back to the origin. Solana held up better, but it's almost all the way back to the origin as well. On the low time frames. This is a sign of weakness. And I think the reason why you're seeing it is because people are afraid that Bitcoin's gonna nuke, because this 4-hour chart's not the best, but it can turn around quite quickly. Like, if it pumps like all the, like, just back to 106, people are gonna be euphoric again. Something that I've seen here a lot. Opinions have changed on the market at these points quite drastically. And it's the same thing here, right? Like, if we're in a position, like, if it makes a higher low here, it looks so bullish, but if it breaks down here, it looks so bearish, and then people are just like losing their minds trading this in high leverage. But yeah, XRP, like I said, good. This the range. $3 would be bad if it was lost on the low time frames. On the higher time frames, kind of similar. Can make an argument that it's like 2.96 here on the daily time frame. But yeah, there's really not that much there. Let me remove these on daily. They can be on the hourly instead. And on the daily, technically speaking, you could be bullish until you like come back into the range. Like, if XRP shows incredible weakness, yeah, these are also, what is that? It's definitely not the daily. Yeah, if it comes back at 2.7, that would start looking quite bad. So basically, would be a breakout, a failure to make a new high, go down. At that point, starts looking quite bad. And one thing that I want to say, like, I mean, XRP is one of the best looking charts in crypto, if not the best one. But you don't want to hold XRP when it actually starts a downtrend, because those are fucking brutal. Like, XRP's been so bad to hold when the market turns, so you don't want to be too faithful on that. Like, this is not something you want to sit on. I think it's probably gonna go higher, but it's just something like this, loosely held. The top is in talk was not that serious until GCR tweeted. Yeah, but I mean, people always, they need someone to tell them. Generally think we're getting closer. I think it's not that much juice left, but I think there's a little bit left. Duck, are you going to set up a meme coin for your baby? No. Not even for myself. Were you short once we topped? No, not interested. That's XRP. Like I said, looks good on both pairs. XRP BTC, XRP USD, both same chart basically. XRP BTC has a little bit more room to go until resistance. We talked about this actually at the low. It's up now against Bitcoin by 300%, and I think there's another 160, 170% possible. It's a little bit like Dogecoin. If you guys remember, like if anyone's around from the good old days in 2017, 18, 19, when I was like the Dogecoin trader, that's how I traded Dogecoin. Basically did the same thing. Like look, where we have like a range, and you basically always bought like at 20 to 30 sats, and you sold around like 100, and you did that over and over and over again. It was great until Elon kind of ruined it. Same kind of story here with XRP, just it's not ruined yet. You buy down here, you sell up here, and then you walk away. Can I use XRP BTC resistance as my USD target, or does that not work like that? It does work like that. Like if this rallies, and I mean Bitcoin's strong, and this rallies and goes up like 100%, which would put it to 6, and then Bitcoin goes up like another 50, would take it like to $9. You can most certainly do that. You can also you can obviously also do it like, let's say Bitcoin nukes, right, and goes to like 80K or something, and this goes up, and then you just basically subtract that movement. Can easily do that and just look at that resistance. This is what I'm gonna do. If XRP hits that resistance, there's a I'm gonna sell a bunch. Maybe not all, depending on how bullish or bearish I am, but I would sell a bunch. Hey Don, you asked Twitter about good investments for a recession. I'm also starting to research about it. How is it going? I've decided to just basically buy every single sector that makes sense, right? Like, so real estate. I mean, I hate to say it, but I haven't, and I'm not really that interested, but like metals, whatever. It's the one that I want the least. Bonds, like it just spread it as far as I can. So like, depending on how shit everything goes, I have a bunch of I'm just gonna spread it out, and then if one of them goes to zero, which I'm obviously not thinking, but if one of them goes down, I'm not in too deep shit. I'm actually not in wealth creation mode anymore, besides now with crypto a little bit. I'm more in preservation mode, so that's kind of like where I'm at now. Don has TDS. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like the whole Trump thing. Like people are like, oh yeah, you have Trump derangement syndrome or whatever, and that's why you talk about him. The guy does insane shit on the daily. Like it's the same with Elon, right? Like these are people, like you cannot talk about other people, like about normal people all day every day, because they don't do insane shit, right? Like if you talked about your neighbor every day, you'd be like, he put the trash in front of the door, like what an idiot, right? If you talk about Elon, you're like, the guy did like raise his hand, and it kind of looked like a Nazi salute, whether it was one or not. And then the next day he's like talking with the AfD, like the German right-wing party. And then the next day he's like, we should all have 10 children. Like there's so much to talk about because he says so much insane shit. And it's the same with Trump, which is why like people are always surprised, like, oh, why is everyone talking about Elon and Trump? It's because they do insane shit. There's just a lot to talk about, basically, is my argument. And I'm like, I don't necessarily like, personally, I don't like both of them. I think just on a human level, I don't like both of them. But the reason why they're so highly discussed is because they have a real impact on the market. How long until you take a break, leave, as you said on Twitter the other day? I mean, I'm still gonna stream, I think. But like from trading, once I think the cycle is over, I'm gonna stop trading, and I think that's gonna be it. At that point, I'm gonna be an investor, and but I'm probably still gonna do the show, at least for a little bit. So yeah, that's that. We talked about Trump, we talked about XRP. Like I said, Dogecoin, I liked, and I actually called this from like this bounce to the top, actually, pretty close to the top. And then I was like, I actually don't like it that much anymore given the Trump thing. Because I was like, the memes are gonna be sucked dry, and so far I've been quite right. It's just been the entire market's been sucked dry. I generally think Elon's gonna try to push this if the market holds up, right? So you have like, it's a better coin than a lot of others because you have the Elon factor where he's pumping it for you a little bit, but still not the biggest fan of that whole sector. I like other things better, but yeah, not the worst. Still support on the monthly. And then Solana is one of the stronger ones, and that has basically a little bit of confluence with, like, the Trump coin was launched on it, and now with the ETF, where people speculate on the ETF. So it's also one of the better ones, just because, like, this is the stuff that you're looking for, right? Basically, like, outside influence that could push something higher. Makes it easier, right? Like, if you, let's say you're holding anything useless in my list. Let's say you're holding, I mean, I don't want to say Zcash because a lot of people like it, but you're holding Zcash, right? There's not going to be an ETF for this thing. Trump is not going to talk about this. Elon's not going to talk about this. And then you have to really fight hard to find like outside sources that pump this thing. And it could still pump, right? But you're kind of limiting yourself by trading something that no one really cares about. And if you hit it right, and you buy something that no one cares about yet, and then people start caring about it, that's a good thing. But I don't know, like, it depends on the potential that it has to do that, right? So for example, no one was talking about Solana meme coins when it was completely nuking, right? Obviously. But it had the potential to do it, right? Like, Solana worked perfectly fine for most of it. So there was potential there, and then once it started bouncing, like, that's gonna be taken advantage of. And then you kind of look for those where you're like, you're either like early to the thing and you kind of figure out, okay, is there potential for something like that to happen? Or you look for outside factors that could push your coin, your investment, whatever. I think Solana has it, Dogecoin has it, XRP has it, but a lot of the other ones don't. And then you're basically reliant that someone decides to pump it, like an influencer or like the cabal or whatever. And that is faith-based. So, and you can also, it doesn't have to be like a narrative play or whatever, it can also be the chart, right? Like, when you have a really good chart, that's a narrative in itself. So. They literally put the Doge logo on the government website and didn't pump. I mean, it did pump, and then they removed it because they got copyrighted, as far as I understand. But yeah, there you go. That's kind of like it. There's not really that much more interesting stuff going on. Right now, like I said, people are freaking out because we are trading very close to the higher low area. And they're afraid that, like, if it gives out here, then maybe it gives out there, and then we're already back below 100K and starts looking shitty. That's why you're seeing a lot of altcoins not doing so well. That's why Trump coin is not doing well. So that's going to be an interesting one. People are watching this quite closely. And I think a lot of people are freaking out because Trump's not really speaking about crypto. And a lot of that is priced in, right? Like people expected Trump to do a lot of crypto stuff and he really isn't. Can you give us your view on Solana? Maybe lower time frame entry? So chart-wise, if it closes the monthly above here, that's really nice, above 210. On the weekly time frame, we are right at resistance, actually closed perfectly on it. So weekly close above it would be a breakout trade. Pullback trade is shit because like a pullback maybe to here might be okay, but it's a tough one. Might be that you have to take a breakout trade on this to get a position. Pullbacks pullbacks would be quite bearish. But I mean, there's support here, lower time frame like 220. Like if the market decides to go down, and then I think you just look for breakouts more so than anything. I hate trading breakouts, so I'm not the best to give advice on this. But we close that resistance. If we close above it, that's a breakout, and I think that could lead to the monthly breaking out, or the monthly could even kind of just close where it is right now, and that would technically be a monthly breakout, and that could lead to a weekly breakout, and that could lead to daily going up. So it's a breakout trade, and if you want support levels, I mean, there's like around 200. I'm not entirely sure if that's gonna get hit or not. I think that really should hold though on a closing basis. So like if it goes down here, maybe, because if it dumps through it, that would be resistance. This support would be shit, and then we're deep in the shit, right? Like that'd be awful, because it would invalidate a lot of, like for Solana to go to 120, the entire market would have to giga nuke. So I think the best support that you have is this box on the weekly time frame, and then you just have to break out trade it if it goes up. Before you leave, tips to get better at trading, like actually helpful tips. I mean, there's not really that much that I can give you other than just spend time doing it. Like I see a lot of people kind of reading everything that they can find, kind of going like joining paid groups, doing all that kind of shit. But at the end of the day, like sit down, look at the like think about the market, think about what makes sense, like think a thesis out or whatever, write it down, right? So you hold yourself accountable. Like let's say you love AI, you write down an AI thesis, you look at the market, you kind of scan the market for which AI coins you think will do the best. You look at the chart, you write all of this down, you make a thesis. If you are like, hey, I'm shit at trading, you take a little bit of money, you bet on your thesis, you give it a little bit of a time window, right? Like you see, okay, I want to have this trade play out in this time. And then you come back a week or 2 or 3 later and you look how it went. And then you're like, okay, how did I go wrong? How did I go right? Like what went right? What went wrong? You have it all written down so you can kind of see like what your thinking was and where you were wrong. And then you just go from there. And you just do this for like a bunch of like a period of time until you feel comfortable, and hold yourself accountable. Don't be like, oh, it's just the only reason why this didn't work is because of this and that. No, just be like, hey, this didn't work. I should have accounted for this. Sometimes obviously stuff happens and it's unaccountable, but then you can think about how you could have mitigated losses, how you could have like managed to trade, all that shit. But I think like just doing it is the most important thing, the best thing that you can do, just doing it. You can read as much as you want. It's the same, like you can read, like let's say you never played tennis before, you can read all the books, and then you go on the field, like you spend like 100 hours of reading books, and you go on the field and someone is across from you and he's kind of like played like for 2 hours and he's gonna beat your ass. And the reason why is because like he's done it. So yeah, hope that helps. Trade more is the best advice that I can give. Which one has more potential, Trump or Doge? It's an awful question. I don't know. I think they're pretty similar, potential-wise. So yeah. Anyway, hope that helped, and you had fun. It was quite a long stream actually. I need to get to bed. So yeah, appreciate you guys coming by. Shout out to Woo for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate their support. Like I said at the beginning of the show, their links are in the description. Go check them out. And yeah, much love. See you guys. Bye bye.